Take care.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Direct Insurance Podcast, otherwise known as DIP, a podcast for independent insurance agents, brought to you by Insurance Advisors Direct. Today, my guest here is John Janesak. John, thank you so much for joining me today.
You are welcome.
So, John, tell me a little bit about yourself. Tell me a little bit about the product lines that you sell, how long have you been in business, etc.
Okay. Well, I have been in business since 2009, very heavy since 2011. I was probably initially an investment advisor for about 2 years before I went into basically full-time insurance. And I generally worked for probably a good 8 years in life and annuity business exclusively. It wasn't until maybe the post-COVID, just leaving COVID, did I start getting into more of healthcare, namely Medicare insurance.
Okay,
So it's
awesome.
only been about maybe 2 years since I've really been in Medicare.
Oh, okay,
Okay.
cool. Well, today we are going to be talking about the 5 free ways for independent insurance agents to generate really high quality leads, especially in the year 2023. There are so many different avenues and different marketing tactics for agents to use in order to help grow their business. And a lot of them can be really, really expensive as well. And granted, yes, you do have to spend money to make money. But of course, obviously, when you're first starting out in a business, you have no money.
That's true. That's true. That saying, spend money to make money, is something that I have learned that is a very general term that I don't think that a lot of people should listen to, but I think over experience and over time, you realize that there is still a lot of thought process that has to go into everything that you do.
Yeah.
And there are ways to not have to spend so much money, no matter where you're at in your business.
And just having like a general marketing strategy as well. As long
Absolutely.
as like you have like, some sort of strategy, you're better able to kind of like track your business expenses as well as, your return on investment is. Because if you were tracking how much money you had spent versus like how much you made, you are really able to have a better understanding of what's going to be more beneficial for you, your money, and your time. And maybe it was a lead generation tactic that brought in a lot of money, but say you just really hated doing it.
Yes,
Like
yes.
cold calling or doing direct mail, sometimes those can have those really nice like shots of dopamine to the brain because it's kind of like that instant sort of return on investment.
Yes.
But at the same time, like if it was something that you really, really just didn't enjoy doing, in the long run, are you probably going to continue to do that and bring yourself the success that you maybe saw the first time? Probably not.
Absolutely. No, I think that's true. I think over time, when you're going through your marketing strategies and you're measuring, everybody has their different aspects that they end up measuring more in their business than others. So the next agent or advisor next door to me might be ROI, return of investments of anything that he's putting money into might be his number one.
Yeah.
For me, it's not necessarily do I always measure return of investment? Maybe if it's a new thing that I'm trying, but for the most part, it's actually I'm measuring my own actions, how I'm doing the things that I'm doing and how I'm approaching them. Am I playing my role? Am I doing everything that I'm supposed to be doing to make sure I am exhausting every opportunity that I can? And money, much of the time, money has nothing to do with that. So, because I will tell you that I'm probably the worst salesman out there. I don't sell, I provide.
Yeah.
And I know that. And it's taken a lot of time where I've purchased leads. I've gone into marketing strategies that are sales oriented, and I have failed miserably. Failed miserably. And over time, I've continued to put money into them. I am not a cold caller. I don't cold call. I'm horrible at cold calling. I need some kind of approach to the aspect of I want to provide. I don't want to sell you. And because of that, I guess you melt into what works for you. And that sometimes you might be lucky enough where that costs very little money. If you find what works, like for me, I'm a referral driven person and referrals cost nothing.
Yeah, actually, so we are going to be talking about referrals. So let me just kind of like quickly go through the 5 different lead generation strategies that are free for independent insurance agents. Number 1 is to attend local networking events. Number 2 is volunteering in your community and developing relationships. Number 3 is organic web SEO. And number 4 is going to be using social media groups or just using social media organically or free. And then number 5 is going to be referrals. So let's go ahead and quickly jump into attending those local networking events. So tell me a little bit more about like what your experience was like attending networking events. What was it like when you first started doing insurance and really started attending these events? And now how do you find that your strategy to attending events has changed over the years?
Okay. The events that I attend generally are the ones that I generate, meaning I may do a seminar. I'm in control. I know what's going to happen. I can mold it like clay, and I can figure out how I'm approaching people. When it comes to communities, it's not necessarily your local community. It is getting involved with the communities you're approaching.
Mm-hmm.
For me, some of my communities that I approach are 4 hours away from here. They have nothing to do with the communities here. So how am I blending into those communities? Do I go to Chamber of Commerce? No, I used to. I do
Mm-hmm.
not do that anymore because my style, the way that it works, they know you're coming. There's always 4 agents in Chamber of Commerce. They know why you're there. Conversations are cut short. It can end up being a hill that you're climbing. So what I do is I will choose particular small business owners in the communities. I will advertise for them. I'll ask if they can advertise me. I will do anything that I can to get into a community because one thing I've learned in communities is usually 3 degrees of separation. And if I can get a relationship with a small business owner in a community that is a intimate small business owner, meaning someone who is, I don't know, I work with a lot of people who make t-shirts.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, screen printing guys, those
That's
kind
really
of people.
cool.
I do that because they're going to know certain people that I need to talk to.
Yeah.
And once I get a relationship with them, then I'm kind of in. But the rest of it is the art form of what I can do. So I do not like to go to just cold Chamber of Commerce meetings. I don't know anybody. I'm meeting everybody for the first time, mainly because I've told you before, I am not a good salesman. Things need to flow in what I do for a living and why I do it. And if it's not the platform that's going to allow me to do that, I kind of avoid it.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting. And I always get held, my wife is a marketing professional and she's always on my case about that. And over the past 10 years, I do not get the results from cold meetings.
Yeah.
It has to have some kind of intimate setting based on a relationship because that's how I thrive. And I think every agent's different. I'm not telling you what I'm telling you is correct. Okay, but that is what I have found that works for me.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's not necessarily your community, it's the communities you're working at.
Yeah.
And and usually small business owners are the ones who I go after because they're usually the inlet to that community somehow.
Yeah. I think that lots of other different small businesses already have their hands really in the community, especially since a lot of the small business owners have either grown up in those communities, so they already have lots of different relationships from people that maybe they went to school with, maybe they've known each other since they were 5 or in preschool or kindergarten, and now they've all kind of stayed within the same community. So they have these tight knit groups of people.
Yes.
And so when you're networking with these small business owners, it's like you're making a small connection here, but their connection and their network of other people and other, potential clients for you, these people are now more accessible.
Absolutely. And I think a lot let's just say just Medicare, you're dealing with, in general, seniors. The definition could be 60 and older, right? Depending on their situation. Generally 65 and older. When you go into a community, one of the things you want to do is when I go into a community, it could be anywhere in the state of Michigan, Indiana, Ohio, wherever I'm going, I need to find some kind of connection I have to that state because if I can find a degree of separation, hi, Nancy. Oh, you know Joe? My dad knows Joe.
Mm-hmm.
Because I will tell you, this is the one tidbit that I have learned in Medicare or anything in senior insurance, that there is a bit of comfort that they feel that if you're in somehow their circle of trust, somehow, some way, and once you do that and you establish some kind of connection with them through an individual that they have a relationship with, that will go miles.
Oh, yeah.
That's actually priceless.
Oh,
You're
yeah.
already 50% there of where you want to go with that individual.
Mm-hmm. Because it's essentially making the world smaller.
Yes.
I can't begin to describe, even since starting here at IAD, my world has gotten so much smaller.
Mm-hmm.
There are so many more people that I had realized that I was already kind of connected with. Mm-hmm. And I had no idea that this was kind of the missing piece between all of it. So I find it very interesting you bring that up.
Absolutely. I mean, let's just say we had a very interesting conversation a little bit ago about our last names.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah, that's right.
Now,
yeah.
I could have made a connection with you, and it could have been, and because this is another thing that comes with the responsibility of making an approach like this, is you can never, ever alienate your clients. Mm-hmm. You cannot do a one and done. You have to have a constant contact with them. You have to maintain the relationship with them, because if you continue that model, they're going to be referring to the person that you know that they know. And if you did one thing wrong, like dominoes, you're also hurting yourself that much more. Mm-hmm. So there is a lot of responsibility that goes along with it. But I have learned in the senior community, their worlds are much smaller. Yeah. Then that's okay. And you want to adapt to that and have some kind of comfort, and you want them to recognize who you are. Because a lot of them will not let you in their home. They will not entertain the conversation because you're just going to sell them. The only way you're going to actually get into some of these homes is you have to find a degree of separation. Mm-hmm. Somehow, some way.
Yeah.
And if once you do that, you've established something and you need to work on that, almost like growing a tree.
I think that aligns very much well with the sentiment of inbound lead generation.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of like your outbound lead generation tactics are going to be like your cold calling, your direct mail, where you are reaching out to that potential client. Whereas with more inbound lead generation, you're just kind of putting yourself out there and you are establishing relationships with people. And then the people that truly want to work with you, they already know who you are. They know what you do. They know how what you do provides people with value. So that's when you'll find that those people are going to become your highest quality clients and the ones that will end up referring you to other people because they already know that you're not just there to sell them on something. You are there to truly help them in because they have a need. We're obviously all required by law to have, health insurance.
Yeah.
So being able to help them establish that connection, what their needs are with an insurance product it's wonderful.
Absolutely, because you're using the insurance product to solve a problem. And that is the thing. This is that you also have to try when you get into communities, you get into anything that you're going, where there's numbers, where there's a lot of opportunity. You need to solve a problem for somebody. If you solve a problem for somebody, that will spread like wildfire. If I go to Nancy's house, who's 72 years old, and Nancy just retired. She missed her 65 window. She didn't miss it. She just continued to work. She has no idea what to do. You meet her and you talk her through everything step by step and you solve that problem, you just created 10 referrals guaranteed. Guaranteed. And it's taken a lot of trial and error thinking that this thought process might work because I've only been doing this maybe in the Medicare world for 24 months. But I have chosen this route. I stick with this route because this route works for me. And I take tidbits of every agent that I meet. They have different approaches to the business, right? And some work in numbers. Some say, I don't really care about my retention. I want 100 clients in 6 months. Some might say, I want 50 clients over a year, but I want to retain them all, right? There's different ways. And when you have those goals in mind, you're going to approach your goal to what works. And that's one thing I've learned is all the agents have such different viewpoints of the business. You have to find what works for you based on what your goals are. Mm-hmm. Why are you getting into this business? What are you going to be doing? And that will dictate how you approach it with the 5 items we're talking about today.
Yeah, I think that's really important to even talk about the fact that it's quality over quantity.
Yes.
Because like you were saying that there might be an agent that wants to gain 50 clients but then retain all of them. There might be another agent that wants to gain 100 clients in 6 months, but then they kind of don't really care what happens to them after that. But in the long run, that's not really going to benefit that agent very much either. Would you agree?
I 100% agree.
Yeah.
100% agree. And, I've had agents call me and I wonder why they call me. Because they're monsters in the industry. Like they're huge, like thousands of clients. Mm-hmm. And they'll ask me questions, not based on my production. They'll ask me questions based on what they've heard about my retention. Mm. And I don't have any tricks to it besides the conversations we've already had. Is just value your clients like a relationship and not a sale. Because if they ever do move, because one thing that you cannot dictate is health changes. We all change in health. Someone may become diabetic and that one medication and that wonderful policy that you gave them is not covered. Mm-hmm. And maybe it's covered in a better policy. Yeah, they're going to have to change potentially, but wouldn't you want them to call you to make the change and not another agent? Mm-hmm. And that's how you retain your clients. I don't want to keep changing my clients. I don't want to keep writing them and rewriting them. So I put them in something that I think will work because when I meet them, I always think of what they're going to be 10 years from now, not today. And when something does change, that trust, they're going to call me because I solved a problem for them before. Yep. And I'm always talking to them 3 to 6 months through the year, always touching base. And those are kind of the marathon approaches that you may not see the results quick, but over a span of a year or two, you'll start seeing it. Yeah.
I think I used this analogy in another podcast episode, which I don't quite remember if it was going to air before this one or not. But we were talking about how all of the effort that you put into your business as far as like marketing and lead generation, and sometimes it feels like you're spinning your wheels. Mm-hmm. But the harder that you're working towards your goal and the more effort that you're putting into your marketing and your lead generation and the more effort that you put into your client retention, sometimes it might feel like you're being pulled back and that you're not making the strides that you wanted to. But at a certain point, something within the business just clicks. Yep. And then it's like you're an arrow being propelled into the distance.
Absolutely. And I think a lot of it is that I was lucky enough to be, in a different sector of this insurance business. coming into it, I was always kind of looking for what Medicare had to offer that wasn't in the life and annuity business. It was interesting. It took me 10 years to figure that out. It took COVID actually to figure that out. And, coming out of COVID in 21, where we were kind of in and out of it, we're resurfacing, I started to look at that. And because I had to solve a problem for one person, and that one person was my inlet to the entire industry.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, I'm not selling anything. I'm actually providing for people. I'm helping. There's a service.
Yeah.
And that is something internally in me that maybe not another agents. There are some agents who are just insurance agents that are out there to sell, and that's absolutely fine. That is not me. And that's probably why I always felt a little struggle in the industry. I really couldn't find the particular products that meshed in with what I wanted for my business. And that would be service oriented. I didn't want to be transactional. I wanted to create a book of business service that will create a living for me and will continue to grow if I approach it that way. And it's worked so far.
I think that that's definitely something that a lot of agents don't really consider when they are first starting in the industry is I know a lot of people who first start out as an insurance agent, because isn't there like some sort of crazy statistic that only 8% of the people who become insurance agents will actually, turn it into a career and you stick with it. And a lot of that kind of has to do with the fact that so many people are attracted to the industry because they hear that it's a very lucrative business.
Yeah.
But there's so much more work that goes into it because if you're not establishing those relationships, especially in-person relationships too, and I think that since COVID and our lockdowns, we are all now so much more craving that human interaction and that face-to-face.
Yes.
Where we were kind of doing Zoom calls and doing everything virtually for quite a long time, but then we kind of got out of that and we were like, okay, listen, I'm sick and tired of doing things via Zoom. Like I want to do things in person.
Yes.
So I know that you had mentioned that you like to do in-person seminars, even if they're 4 hours away. What is your approach to starting those seminars? How do you advertise them? How do you get people to show up? And how do you know what types of people are going to be attending at each different event? And how do you kind of approach it differently based on location? Like, do you find that you dress a certain way differently? Do you find that you present maybe different products or carriers differently? How do you find that sort of like process works for you?
Okay, so that's a very loaded multiple questions, but it's okay. So I am not a pro. So that's one of the things that I recognize about myself is that I am not. And I used to conduct seminars and other forms of business where I used to be a speaker in a previous career. So I was never worried. I'm more nervous talking in front of 2 people than I am 500 people. It's interesting how that is, right? But I always felt like I had so much to offer for whatever the seminar was going to be that I always kind of project myself, probably wrong. You should never do this. I project what I want to hear from people, which is just, can you just talk to me? Can you just not sell me? Right?
Yeah.
So you had mentioned products. When I do seminars, I have done a few seminars for some carriers. And I was very apprehensive about doing it because it is product driven and I don't like it. I don't like it at all. So I do educational seminars, purely educational. It touches on a little bit of retirement. It touches on a lot of Medicare. It touches on the process of Social Security, how it works. And you want to spark questions because questions turn into appointments, right?
Yeah.
But you cannot sell. You have to show that you're educating them the best you possibly can and you're creating a trust. This is the first time we're ever going to meet. We're not going to meet for the first time ever again. This is the first time we're going to meet. So you had said things like, so when I'm in front of people, depending on the community I'm in, it will dictate how I dress. There are times where I wear a golf shirt. There are times where I wear a suit with no tie. And there are times where I dress to the hilt, depending on where I'm at. I've kind of calmed down on all that rhetoric where I'm either going to be in a golf shirt or a suit with no tie because I love that relaxed feel and I never want to be intimidating to anybody. I don't want to be. I want to be, mind you, this is Medicare. I want to look like your grandkid. Does that make sense? Yeah. I want to look like that grandson you're so proud of. I want to be that grandson.
Yeah.
I want to be that person that you're willing to talk to. Or maybe not the grandson, but maybe your daughter or your son or whatever that you're so proud of and you can relate to that. Wow.
Something that's familiar and approachable.
Absolutely.
I think that familiarity is something that is not really thought about very much in the sales business. I know that, well, I obviously have never been an agent myself, but I did spend a good, while I was in college, I did work in retail and retail sales. And the company that I worked for very, very highly put an emphasis on client retention because obviously it's easier to retain a current customer than to gain a new one. So making sure that whenever we were approaching someone, someone new, that we offered them a compliment, like, oh my goodness, I love your shoes. I love your bag. Where did you get that? Oh, what other stores have you been shopping in the mall at today? And then really getting that customer to be like, oh yeah, I bought this dress at Forever 21.
Yep.
And then you could be like, oh, well, here, I've got something that great that could go with that. Like, here, let me show you. And really just like establishing that connection based on something that they're already interested in. And it's that familiarity of having a conversation with someone and purely not really just trying to sell them on something, just being like, oh my goodness,
Yeah.
I've got this stuff over here that would go great with what you already have. And if you're interested, hey, this stuff is on sale, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And if you're interested in this, yada, yada, yada. It's not real. Again, it's about having a solution to a problem.
Yep.
That they have a problem of, hey, I need something to go underneath this dress. Well, here, I'm creating the solution for you.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. So when it comes to seminars, to top that off, vending wise, getting people to come in, I rely on people like you because I am not a pro at that. I will say what I want, where I'm locating, what the kind of people I'm looking for, and then things will be formulated. I've done seminars where it literally was word of mouth. I've done that, and I've had 50 people show up, and I put out, I don't know how many thousands of mailers out, and I've had 5 people show up, right? So in a sense, I kind of cherry pick where I run these things and when I do them and how I do them. And I use people who are professionals in marketing like you. I mesh my thoughts with the person who knows the industry of marketing a lot more. Then I have to admit that, right? I have to admit I am not a marketing genius. I'm just a very personal person. So teach me how to exploit that. Right?
I think that going into the idea of a lot of agents don't really necessarily use market research in their strategy when they are attempting to target a new audience or maybe in like a new location. And a lot of agents will just have this kind of like one size fits all approach to just be like, I don't care who I'm selling to as long as they're over 65 and they need Medicare.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, well, we need to establish your target audience. Who are the people that you want to work with? I want to work with anybody who will buy from me. Okay, I get that. I understand that. But however, kind of just going in blind and not really having like a target audience or like a target in a specific direction as to where to kind of like position yourself. You can't be everything to everybody.
Correct.
I mean, like, granted, yes, you can go to certain events where you can, dress up and have like the nice suit. And then there are other times where you're going to dress down, maybe wear like the golf shirt and jeans and be more approachable. You can't be like that to every single person every day. Now, granted, yes, you do have to know your audience. And if you are targeting that audience of the people that are going to expect you as an insurance agent to show up in a suit, that's what they're going to be expecting. But then you're going to have maybe these other people that they might be intimidated by the full suit. They might think, oh, here's this like hoity-toity like insurance guy, but you have to know your audience.
Yep.
And I think that a lot of agents that kind of go into that marketing strategy being kind of blind to it, that's where they kind of fall short.
Yeah, I mean, we're all taught certain things in the industry, and it takes, I mean, unfortunately, I used to hate this because of people would say, oh, in time. And there used to be individuals that would say, if you make it in 5 years, if you're still in this industry, you'll make it. I never really understood what that meant. And it wasn't, I always thought it was about money, right? And it's not about money, really. It is coming into your own. And that does take a lot of time because there's so much that comes out. There's so many different flavors and approaches to the business and how to do it. And we all want to adapt those things, and you can't adapt everything all at one time. So you have to figure out you really have to soul search. You have to. I mean, above all, the best marketing tool that I could tell any agent is you have got to soul search for yourself. Why are you doing this? And you will not thrive unless you do something that feels comfortable to you. You can try all you want. Ultimately, you're going to either get A, burned out, or B, you're going to ultimately see numbers that you don't like because you're not all in. You've got to do something that fits your mold and what you want to do, and then sky's the limit.
100%. Okay, so let's go ahead and jump into our next free lead generation strategy, which is volunteering in your community and, again, developing relationships. And I know that we've touched a lot on like developing those relationships and also retaining clients. But what are some of the ways that you are active in your community, either through like volunteering or if you're active in your kids' school? Like, tell me about what those experiences are like for you.
Okay, kids' school. Wow, that's a big one. Now that I have a 14-year-old who's in high school, and my daughter. And when you're in middle school, my daughter's younger, she's in middle school, first year of middle school. There's not a lot of opportunity there when it comes to, elementary schools, middle schools. But all of a sudden, my son was in high school basketball. And I'm not sure, this is where I know that it's interesting when you catch people researching you. And we were at a team meeting and someone came up to me and said, we're counting on you. I don't know what you're talking about. And, in a gymnasium, when you go in there and there are billboards, you put on the wall, those kind of things. And they're like, oh, revenue collecting for the team, each billboard's $400, right? And they want me to buy one. I'm like, well, why do you want me to buy one? I understand. Well, you have an insurance agency, right? Which is absolutely wonderful because it tells me that my advertising, whatever I do online, makes it look like I'm just this gigantic corporation because I'm not. And I'm like, oh, it's just me, and maybe a partner here and there, but it's just me. Oh, that's amazing. Well, there are so many people that might need your help. Now, I did that for a year and received not one, even a communication. And so it was interesting learning that kind of stuff. So what I did was my parents live in a really small community. And when they vote, right, like when a president or anybody can vote, they go to the community center. Well, the community center was a place that I grew up playing basketball in. I'm talking about a teeny community center, like a little church. Everybody goes there, and I'll bet you can probably count 700 people total that goes in there, right? So I go there, and I'm like, is there a way I can just put my cards out there and just tell people what I do when I walk into voting, and they can just see this and they need help or whatever? And I'm not sure what I did. I wish I could tell you because it was, I can't think on the top of my head, but it had something to do with Social Security, educating on Social Security. And I knew that was a political topic for a little bit. And there was a lot of people on it. And I put some stuff out there, and I ended up getting one phone call. Well, I got one phone call, and I went in the community and I solved a problem. I really didn't solve a problem. I just explained how things work and what she and he needed to do, and maybe kind of guided him through a little bit. Well, that was the one thing that just like wildfire. And that is the one thing I was telling you is that when you do these, when you advertise, putting a billboard up on a highway is wonderful. Okay, that's great. Right. And we should all be doing that. I can never tell you you're wrong doing that. Okay. But I can tell you, going back to the ROI, you may not be very happy. Now, I put cards out for free and figured out what kind of events need to be touched on. That's 1,000% ROI. I didn't put any money into it. That one person, I ended up with 17 people.
Wow.
In the same community, all within 1 mile of each other.
Yeah.
Right. So it's like, when you talk about community events and things like that, I do target community events. I have learned schools aren't necessarily it for me. Again, going back to your style. Again, my wife is a marketing professional and she's like, why don't you do this? Why aren't you doing this? I'm always hearing it. And it's like, well, I know after 12 to 14 years of doing this, what is not working, right? I mean, I should always have a billboard on 275 highway. Okay,
Yeah.
Great, cool. Yep, I do that. All right. But you're not going to be happy when I'm spending $5,000 to $10,000 and I get one Medicare that pays me how much. That's the business side of it. In a community that's much larger than a small community. And this all blends into, I do not do phone sales. I meet at kitchen tables. If you don't meet with me at your kitchen table, I'm not meeting with you. I've decided that. Now, some agents will go, wow, that's huge. You're letting go of a lot of sales. Okay, yeah, maybe, but I'm also losing none. Again, it's your approach. It's what your goals are and how you're going to market. This summer, I have a billboard and a racetrack, on a racetrack of all things.
Huh.
And I did it last year, and it was a community that I'm working in, and I ended up getting 15 phone calls.
Wow, that's awesome.
And I just asked them, on any given night, can you just announce me and my name and what I do and say that I've helped a lot of people in your community on any Saturday night at a racetrack? They do it. And that is the one thing, again, I like smaller communities because they fit my personality, right? Because I grew up in a small community. So all over the state, I've also went into Ohio, and I've targeted. And I also buy leads. I purchase leads. But I only purchase leads, past 2 years, one time per year, 2,500. And the reason is because I have cherry picked where I'm going to send those leads to and what zip codes and where I'm at. It's because I figured out where I need to go, what kind of connections I have to that community. Oh, I know Sherry. Sherry lives in 48222. I'm going to put a bunch of leads on that zip code. Oh, do you know Sherry? Oh, Sherry, she's a teacher at the local. And that's how I do that.
Yeah.
And that's how you start the referral process based on your leads. It's a gift that keeps on giving.
Yeah.
Because people always look at, I put in 1,000 leads, I got 30 back, I closed 15 or whatever, right? Those kind of numbers. No, because what's crazy is that I have sent out 1,000 leads. I've gotten 30 back. I've met with 10. I closed one of those 10, but out of one of those 10, I got 15 referrals. So there's different ways. And out of all those referrals, I've lost 2 and 1 was deceased. I'm not bragging about it. I think that it's just a very long-term approach to the business. And you had touched on how people market, and depending on where they're at in this business, it is hard for a young agent to take that approach because they need to make income. And I have realized over time, as you learn in the business and maybe you get a little bit more financially stable, you might be able to take approaches that are a little bit more marathon than race. And that's, how I do that. So it's not what you do, it's how you approach what you do. It can be leads, billboards, but you have to figure out where you're doing it, where it's going to be effective. You just can't blindly.
Having a strategy.
Yes, you just can't. But it's got to be, it's very personal. And you know what, if I tell agents out there, if you have a marketing professional that you're working with, you have got to disclose all your thoughts. You have got to, because they're going to do what's on paper and what they're taught. But they're also taught to do what they're being told, right? So if I'm sitting there working with you and I tell you where I come from, how I do this, how I like to work, you're going to be able to develop something a little bit more accurate, right, to what I
Yeah.
want. And I think a lot of agents, they don't do that. They don't know what works for them personally. And that's how it dictates their marketing strategies. Now, I probably could do way more than what I'm doing, for sure, always. I'll always say that. But yeah, what I do, that's how I approach it.
I like that. Let's go ahead and jump in next into using social media as a form of lead generation, and not necessarily social media marketing or advertising.
Sure.
I think that a lot of people, when they first think of using social media as a form of lead generation, the first thing they think of is ads.
Yeah.
Ads.
Correct.
But you can generate so many more high quality leads through just being active on social media, specifically using social media groups.
Yes.
So have you ever used social media networking as a form of lead generation, and how did that work out for you?
Okay, interesting. So I totally dropped the ball on this. I'm going to tell you right
Okay.
now. I mean, I know because I've had evidence of why I should be. And because I get caught up in the kitchen table stuff, right? And then the face to face and all that. But one thing I noticed was I do have a website and it's simple and it's a landing page in a sense. I don't get a lot of hits on that. I don't, because on my business card, I have my website and I can track who's visited and the whole deal. And I have a Facebook page. Now, my Facebook page is just, my name, my company, and whatever I want to put on there. And sometimes it can be just a picture of a guy confused about Medicare, right? And any given time you want to put that out there and you want to blast it and you do whatever. And one thing I noticed was the generation of Medicare, they're all over Facebook. And that is no joke. I used to hear that and not put any mind to that. I'd be like, oh no, everybody's on Facebook, that kind of thing and whatever. Never ever put any weight to that. Every time I meet with somebody, let's just say I have a lot of widows for some reason. I do work with a lot of widows, female widows. And when I meet with them and I take care of them, and then I go back home and I might take a glance, and it's only after these meetings, I can see how many people have visited my Facebook page. There's a correlation there because there may be 0 for a month, but I have 5 appointments that day and they're Medicare appointments. The next day, 13 people visited my Facebook, right? So I'm totally dropping the ball on it. Because one, I did get a phone call and I did end up closing some business from a woman who did see my Facebook page, but she was tied to another client. Okay. She just investigated me. And
I tell you, as women, first of all, we
Oh,
are like
boy.
FBI agents.
Oh my gosh. They're the best clients in the world. And I'm telling you, it's like, and not to be sexist driven, but there is an approach to, I was used to always be told, if you sit down with a married couple, if the wife is on your side, you got them both. He means nothing. Nothing. Like it's all her.
Have you ever seen the movie My Big Fat Greek Wedding?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, where
absolutely.
like she's like the man is the head of the family, but the woman is the neck, and the
She
neck
is-
can turn the head any
Any
way she wants. Yes.
And it's interesting because I grew up in, a very traditional type, where mom would stay home, dad would go to work type thing, and she was the boss. She was totally the boss. And now I'm married to a woman of a particular culture and kind of like My Big Fat Greek Wedding. And she is totally the boss. And I look at that and I go, there's a lot of learning to do that because it's the role of each one plays. When I sit down, I do Medicare. It's interesting. It is usually the female who's investigating me. And it's okay. It's absolutely awesome to see that because I'm like, now I'm dropping the ball because I do not use social media enough. I don't. I need to be a little bit more mindful of it that, my gosh, they're all over Facebook. And remember what I was telling you about the 1,000 mailers, 30, 10, that kind of thing? Well, maybe those numbers look bad, but that one person gave you 15 referrals and you closed all those. That's kind of how you need to be looking at Facebook.
Yeah.
You met with, again, I'll just use the word Nancy. Nancy told her friends because Nancy meets with coffee with all of her friends. And what are her friends doing? Or unhappy about their agent, or they need an agent here in the next maybe year. They're the ones that looked at your Facebook. It wasn't Nancy, it was Nancy's friends.
No, because honestly, I tell my agents this all the time, or anybody who comes to me looking for help with social media, and 9 times out of 10, they are just like, well, like, I'm doing all these Facebook ads, But then I'll go and take a look at the business page, and I'm just like, dude, like your business page doesn't tell me anything about you. It
Yeah.
doesn't tell me anything about what you do, who you are, and how what you do is going to help me. And it kind of just almost looks like either spammy or scammy.
Yeah.
And that is something that I think that a lot of agents really need to establish when it comes to social media, is not necessarily even using it in terms of marketing, but using it in a way of being able to show people that you're a real business.
Yeah.
And spreading like that brand awareness, but while also establishing credibility.
Yeah.
Being able to establish credibility to an online audience, especially to women, because
Yes,
we
it's
are
so
always,
true.
Like, I can't tell you how many of my girlfriends they'll either meet like a new guy, either like out at like a bar or something somewhere. And what's the first thing we do? We go and we look him up on
Yep,
Facebook. We go
investigate.
and look him up on social media, Instagram. And I think that that happens a lot of the times too when people are looking to work with a certain business, whether it be a product or a service, whether it be in the beauty industry, in the insurance industry, in the, financial planning industry, insert name of industry here. People are going to research you online
Yes.
before they make the decision of working with you. So the appearance of your social media page and your website is going to explain to that customer a lot about what they're going to get before they even meet you in person.
100%.
That's their first impression.
Yep, and I agree with that. So when you were talking about Facebook, because that's probably the only social media I really use is Facebook at this point. Facebook, and it's because of two things. You talked about purchasing ads. I've done that before, and it's never really worked out very well. If I do, it's cold, and I told you I'm a bad salesman. So talking to someone cold has always been difficult for me. I'm a personal person, but like it's just there's nothing connecting us yet, right? But for the other aspect of knowing people are going to be your landing page, your Facebook business page, whether you're buying ads or not, you need to keep that up.
Yeah.
And I have dropped the ball on it. Like I have. And I actually just got a lecture about that a couple days ago when my wife was looking at my Facebook page. And it's so true because I've been so busy with work and I'm a one-man show. And I've been, it's hard to kind of just be the chief everything officer, right? But I am now seeing after about a year, I am seeing, yes, that Facebook page, that business page, it's not because random people are going to be looking at you. It's because people in your book of business are going to be looking at you, and the people they talk to about you and how much they like you, they're going to be looking at your page. So that is a depiction of you.
Yeah.
Without being there. And I'm seeing that. I am seeing that, and I see the value in that, right? Yeah.
Do you know how many agents I talk to on like a daily or weekly basis, and I'm talking to them about their social media strategy, and they'll be like, oh, well, can't I just like post a bunch of graphics about like Medicare 101? And I'm like, well, I mean, you can, but you need to be doing more than that as well. When you are a small business owner and you are an agent who's trying to bring in a group of people or like your target audience and your clientele, you should be showing them who you are, again, what you do and how what you do provides value. Now that in and of itself, the educational pieces, those can be like your graphics and they can be like the Medicare 101 or like investing 101, life insurance and annuities and all that jazz. But then you should also have pictures of like you and your family. That you should also be posting pictures of you with your past clients. I mean, can you imagine what sort of reach and engagement you would get on a post if you put it on Facebook, if you had taken like a selfie with your client and just been like, hey everyone, oh my gosh, I got to meet with Nancy today. Nancy, it was so great to see you. I'm so glad that I was able to help you with, whatever product it was. Thank you so much. I really
totally
appreciate
just gave me an
you.
idea. Like you totally.
Exactly,
The thing
that's
is
what I'm
that my original thought was, on your website, right?
Yeah.
Which luckily I had some help from you guys on calming down my website. It's too much, out of date, the whole deal. Make it more of a landing page, educational, spark curiosity. They'll call you. Well, the bottom of that page is all the people making some comments about what I've done. And to take that a step further would be like what you said. Take that picture with Nancy. You know what I mean? Having a cup of coffee or maybe at her house with her dog. Anything that's personal. And given, you totally just got me thinking. Totally got me thinking,
There
right?
we go.
And that's because, you know what? The reason that sparked is because that's my approach, right? So that's kind of the whole message of today is there's so many marketing strategies out there, but you got to figure out what works for you because then you can take it all the way. That's probably one of the things that I feel like I could be doing. So that's why I love having like free flowing conversations because you take these little tidbits,
Yeah.
and that's one of them and people will be looking. I just ultimately, that's true. People will be looking and I see zero seen And all of a sudden, I met with a client in 13, right?
Yeah.
And I have a conversation with her next day, and she's like, "Oh yeah, I talked about you when we were out having a drink or having coffee or whatever, and I talked about you." And I'm like, "So in correlation, they're all checking it out."
Mm-hmm.
And I have not been updating my stuff. Like I'm so guilty. I'm so guilty because and I'm seeing that a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I do see that a lot.
Can you imagine like what sort of growth then even now, like now that we're having this conversation, what sort of growth that you would end up seeing if you were to take a selfie with Nancy or like your next couple of clients, just be like, hey, can we take a selfie together? It's going to be from like my social media page. And what's the first thing they're going to say? They're going to say no. I mean, like
Right.
some people might say no. Other people will be like, yeah, sure. Here, let me go put on my party hat.
Yes.
Like they'll be excited about it and just be like, oh yeah, like, here, let me make sure that I have you on Facebook as well. And then you can put it on your Facebook business page and you can tag them so that then as you are operating as your business page, you've now tagged this client on Facebook so that then their entire network of friends and family that they have on Facebook are seeing this post go through their feed because they were tagged in it.
Absolutely. And they're like, wow, look at the relationship they have with their agent.
Yeah.
And
they're like, oh, my agent doesn't do that with me. My agent doesn't take selfies with me. So it's like,
yeah. And the thing is that I have this goal of like, I hate being called an agent. I've kind of achieved it with a few of them. They never call me an agent. They just say John. I like that because it's like, oh, call John. You have a problem? Call John. He'll figure it out for you. He'll partner with you. He'll figure it out.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what I want to hear though, right? I don't want to be an agent. I want to be the problem solver. I want to be the one that's going to take care of it for him. That's the personal approach of, I'm so thinking right now of what you were talking about with the pictures and everything. So it's so in my head right now, stopping me from talking.
I'm going to like go home and take a bunch of
No, but
selfies
it's so
with those
true
clients.
though, right? Like I'm like, how many opportunities did I just miss?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, that's a good idea. But social media, I will tell you that because of my old-fashioned approach that some people just could never do anymore, I think that social media still like, and that's what I was going to say is that I've realized that in the Medicare age, I am 44 years old. Okay, I'm probably the youngest of Generation X, and I know what my grandparents were like. They are nothing like my mom and dad.
Mm-hmm.
And I will tell you that women are pretty hip these days. They know what's going on. And whether they're older or not, oh my gosh. And they're healthier. And we talk about diabetes and all this other stuff, but I do have clients that they don't have the health and they've aged quicker, whatever. But I do see a lot of 65-year-old women, and like I'll give you a picture, okay? A 67-year-old nurse who was just full of spunk, who retired just because people are just telling her to retire, but she technically could work 10 more years. Mm-hmm. Right? She's always been on the go. She's healthy. She's good to go. Do you really think that it's like meeting with grandma? No.
Oh, no.
No. She's on your social media. She may be behind the times of understanding things, but she's in the know. Like she knows what's going on. And it's a little different working with people like that, that are kind of in the know. And they do want to have a relationship with you and they will screen you. Like they're giving you an opportunity by screening you, right? If they didn't like you, they wouldn't be screening you. That's kind of one of the things I've noticed is that like, maybe because I'm getting older, I'm not sure. But like when I'm seeing 65 to 70, it's not the same time when I was a little kid. And I remember my grandpa who was, 69 years old, 70 years old. He was a grandpa, like, traditional grandpa. Grandma was a grandma. It's not like that. Like I'm seeing a lot of professionals that change with this world and they're dipping out now, but look how much the world has changed from 1985 to now. And they were working it all the way through.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, because shoot, I even think about it in terms of this. I mean, there have been so many changes in just generational gaps. When you think about it, the greatest generation, I want to say that my grandparents, I think, are considered part of the greatest generation. And don't even ask my grandma to answer to get on the computer and check her email. Absolutely not. My grandfather literally my grandfather was an author. Like an author and typed like this with one finger.
Yes.
And so it's like, yeah, he could do it, but he never got into the habit of, typing the way that we do
his
today.
home keys. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, oh my goodness, I suggested to my grandma the other day that we should get her an Instagram because she loves taking pictures with her camera and she really wants to share them with everybody in the family.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, Facebook is going to be far too confusing for her because I gave her an iPad and she can't even figure out the password.
Oh, that's so funny.
But I'm like, Grandma, it's my address. It's two numbers back to back. Like she still can't figure it out. So
I had to help a client figure out her email yesterday. And she had no idea because she doesn't have Wi-Fi. She has a cell phone, but doesn't know how to use her email. So she's just working on data, right? And she doesn't know. She doesn't know how her phone works. It just works, right? I had to get some stuff emailed to her and that's a process.
Yeah.
And you know what? Medicare agents have to understand that you are going to run into those situations where that's why I think I meet with a lot of them in person and I do a lot of paper is
It's less
because, and
frustrating.
it's also very familiar.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I run into that a whole lot. And it was like the whole email thing took 30 minutes of just trying to figure out how to get information to her that she can see and then teach her how to forward it to me. Right? That kind of stuff. You got to be ready for that. Not to put down or scare younger agents, like agents that are in their 20s. You've got a hill to climb. And the reason is because I am Generation X and I am the child of the parents who used Rolodex phones. I know that stuff. You don't. And I have picked up on that strength. And that's not a deterrent. It's something they need to be aware of. And older agents who are not seeing that, they need to. Because there was a book that I had received. You know, these marketing organizations always just send you stuff. You don't even know where it comes from. I got this book, this little red book, maybe, 2013. And I had just moved into my new house. And I got it in the mail. And I'm like, wow, this is this big package. I open it up and it's a book and it's got paper clips through it. And it's about storytelling. I still have no idea where this book came from. I do not. What marketing organization sent it to me? Somebody was soliciting me to be an agent for them. And I read it and it was based on our whole conversation today. If I wanted to provide something for you and you were gracious enough to invite me to your home and say, come on in and let's sit at my table, the first thing I'm going to do, and all agents have heard this, but there is so much validity to it. Look at the walls, look at a picture, look at anything that you can relate to and tell a story.
And establishing that connection.
Yes, telling a story and putting them in that picture. And I will tell you, anybody of age loves memories, including myself. Like I'm starting to get a little older. I'm young, but like I know. We would laugh. I had a conversation a week ago and we laughed so hard because she's like, do you remember the 30-foot phone cord that we'd have to have in the phone in the kitchen because my son had a girlfriend and he had to go all the way to the other side of the house to his bedroom and shut the door and sit outside because with the phone cord. And we laughed so hard because of all the things that we had went through. Daytime TV ended at, a certain time and American flag popped up. Dan Rather, Channel 7 News. And all the stuff I'm telling you right now, I sure hope that agents take notes because these are the things that people love to hear at this generation.
People are like so into
Because
the
they
whole
miss
like
it.
nostalgia. Yeah.
They miss it.
Oh my goodness. Even I look at even today's like fashion, hair, beauty trends. A lot of that stuff is kind of like resurging back from like the late 90s, like early 2000s. And that's where people are kind of at nowadays with like style and beauty. And when you think about that in terms of trends of how even older people, how they're comfortable shopping, maybe they're trying new ways of shopping.
Yeah.
And I mean, shoot, you look at maybe even like some of the people that you might be selling to or maybe aging into Medicare that have absolutely no idea how to use Facebook or have no idea how to use the internet. Meanwhile, there are some other people that are like my mom. My mom's in her late 50s, like, approaching 60, and she's very tech savvy. But that was also because she spent a good majority of her career doing IT and like doing COBOL programming, so she's familiar with it. I'm also in this very, very special age group in the sense of being a millennial that I remember what life was like before the internet. I kind of grew up alongside the internet, and I remember like that it was used for like.
You remember it?
Yes, I do.
I totally remember it.
Well, I mean, like I remember what life was like. Kind of like like shoot, I lived on wheels. I lived on my bicycle. I can't tell you how many times I almost broke my ankle with my razor scooter.
Yeah.
And I'm so sad that today's kids have no freaking clue what it was like to just not care about what other people said about you online, or because it didn't exist.
Yeah.
There was a comedy special that I was watching a couple of weeks ago with my husband. I forget what the guy's name is, but he was on Netflix, and he had this joke about how he was like, wow, whatever I did in high school is just a rumor. It's not going to ruin my life.
Yeah. It's not recorded or no one can see it, and it's just a rumor, right? Absolutely.
Yeah. And so we take all of these things that are, as far as like social media and digital media, and we think about how that is now affecting us in the terms of search engine optimization and like your website.
Absolutely.
So how would you describe that your website, other than getting clicks on Facebook, how does your web SEO really play into your success in your business?
Okay, so none.
None. Okay.
None. And it's unfortunate because I think I had touched base with you guys at one point where we kind of started to revamp it and we simplified it and we made it a landing page. It's also an RSVP page, right? So if I ever do something, I can basically get, if I put a mailer out there for a seminar, right? I can get a free RSVP because people can RSVP through my website, right? And I can get all that and it's not at a cost. I'm not sure. It's interesting that you had talked about this because we don't really look at a lot of websites anymore. We do. but we look at social media accounts, right? Isn't that weird? Like we don't really go www. We do, but it's also on social media.
Yeah.
So like in my business, it's social media driven. But when it comes to anything technical, I think that almost anybody who was basically going to listen to this can see, yeah, this guy needs to amp up his newness a little bit, because I'm very old fashioned of how I do it. And that's because of my retention goals and how I reach out and get to people. But I do need to probably utilize my Facebook a little bit more. But I realized that it's really not. It's been told to me a few times that your Facebook needs to be just basically a landing page. But you need to utilize your social media. Like your social media and your blogging presence is extremely important. At the bottom of everything should have your website. They want to contact you or see a little bit more of what you do. And that's just about it. That's kind of what I'm seeing. Like a lot of marketing professionals are like, yeah, you need to have a good, clean one. But that's not really going to be your tool. It can be if you want to try, but most likely people are going to see if you don't exist in social media heavy and you just got a website, that's a big red flag.
Yeah.
You need to have a lot of social media presence.
It establishes the credibility.
It does because it's so public, right?
I'm glad that you actually brought that up about blogs, especially on social media, because one of the great ways that I think for agents to really kind of utilize both social media and their website at the same time, aside from having it linked on their Facebook business page, is to post the blogs from your website to Facebook.
Okay.
I don't even care if nobody's reading your blog, if they're finding it on
Sure.
Facebook. Like they don't have to click on it, they don't have to read it. But one of those things that really truly helps your website kind of generate additional leads for you is by having those web pages pop up higher on the Google search results page when somebody is searching for information. So now if your blog is posted to your Facebook page, the way that it would probably take me an entire day and a half to explain how search results kind of work and how like Google search results work and how the search engine optimization, everything, how that all works. But essentially the more often times that your website appears on different web pages throughout the entirety of the internet, the more likely that Google is to push your website to the top of a search results page based on keyword search relevance.
Right.
So as long as if your blogs have lots of great keywords and people are searching for those keywords through Google, yes, that blog post is going to pop up to the top of the search engine results page, but it's going to perform even better if that blog is posted to your Facebook page, your LinkedIn page, your Twitter page. Literally post it everywhere. Even utilizing Pinterest too.
Yes.
Pinterest is another great way to kind of help with your SEO and just kind of like establishing like the blogs and everything too.
Yep, that's something I've always thought about doing because one thing I would get phone calls, right, from a lot of my clients and they read something, an informational article, anything like that. And it got me thinking, I'm like, wow, and I'm always kind of counteracting something that they heard or whatever else. But either way, they're reading it. And they're reading a lot of informational articles. It could be coming from any source. One of the sources that I see a lot of is actually AHIP. It's got a lot of informational articles. And some it's more relatable to what I do and some it's a little extended, you know. But either way, it's all information. And I've always thought about trying to provide something like that with my website for a lot of my clients that if they want to, they can read. I'm always going to put like a nice fresh article out there every month. Just something, right? Because at 65, they got a long life. There's a lot of life left. And there's a lot of changes that they're going to go through. There's a lot of administration changes. There's a lot of governmental changes. There's a lot of healthcare changes. And just to have a blog or be some kind of information sharing to create visitors more and more and more. And SEO is kind of one of the things that I have thought about because I want to be out there. You know what I mean? I want people to know who I am and how I work. And I think people would like that. You know, like I've that's the thoughts that are in my head, right? Like, how do I get myself out there more? How do I get my old-fashioned self out there more?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That personable person that's out there going, you know what, I'm here to help you, not sell you. How do I get that out there? And I will be the first person on this podcast to say that I am underutilizing social media and my website.
Oh, you're definitely not the first.
And I drop the ball on it like crazy. But it's kind of one of those things where sometimes, though, I am worried that the response I get may be something I can't handle. Does that sound crazy? Like
that's what, honestly, so when I first started working with our first agent to do our social media marketing, that was the first thing that they said was that, oh my gosh, like I'm already fairly pretty busy. Like what's going to happen if I start getting calls like left and right? And it's like, okay, guys, let's be realistic. it's insurance.
Sure. No, you get it. No,
I mean, like,
absolutely. Calm down, right?
it's not like you're selling like diet and weight loss pills. You
Yeah.
know, like that's something that people like would really, really love to
Yeah.
jump on. You know, when we're thinking about social media marketing for small businesses and
Yeah.
for insurance agents, we're really focusing on establishing a relationship before you have made the sale.
Yeah.
It's that getting to know you, getting to know, you, your family, the way that you work, the type of person that you are.
Yeah.
And then that's when that person will want to give you that business. So say, for example, do you have a favorite restaurant?
Yes.
What do you like about that favorite restaurant?
Oh, the atmosphere.
So what sort of like in the atmosphere really is what attracts you to going there time and time again?
The games that are on the TVs.
Okay.
Yeah, it's like BW3s.
Okay.
It's just because it's the atmosphere. My son loves it, and it's relatable to how I grew up in sports and stuff like that. And,
Okay.
it's just kind of the atmosphere. Like he loves chicken wings and French fries and watching games and that kind of thing. And everybody's usually rowdy and happy, that kind of thing. And it's just kind of the overall atmosphere. It's the aura that it puts off. Maybe not just BW3s, but like I always kind of put people in, like I told you, love telling stories. It's the dim lighting.
I'm gonna feel really old. Is BW3's Buffalo Wild Wings?
Yes.
Okay.
B-dubs, so we call it B-dubs.
B-dubs, yes.
But it's like I've been in sports restaurants where I might didn't like it, and it was like, well, it's really bright in here and modern, and you want like a den feeling, right?
Yeah.
And it sounds crazy because my wife absolutely hates that place.
Really?
Yeah, absolutely.
Does she not like chicken wings? What's
She doesn't
wrong with
like their chicken wings. Like she just like,
oh.
sorry, B3s, but but it's just kind of when you ask me those things, it's like, yeah, everything that I like, I have some kind of relatability to it in
Yes.
my life, in my time, in my story. There's some kind of relation to it. And sometimes you can't even figure out why.
Yeah.
And that's why when I was telling you about that little red book that was mailed to me, and it was like telling a story puts someone in a point in time. And you have to find that relevance to them. And, not to go off target, because I always go on the relation side of things. But when you do things like SEO, I'm just giving myself an opportunity to be this way with more people.
Yes.
And I've always shied away from it because I'm like, it's too modern. I'm going to meet too many people that only meet me online. Well, then those people just aren't for me, right? They're just not for me. So I don't know what your question was, to be honest with you, but I think it was what restaurant do I like? And it was BW3. Sorry about that.
No, it's
but
okay.
it's always
okay.
in a relation. It's always in relation to what has happened in your life.
Yeah.
Always.
I feel the same way because one of my favorite restaurants is actually just like this little hole in the wall diner. And the reason why my husband and I love going there is because the food is always really good. The staff is always really friendly. And one of the things that I find that I really, really like about the staff in general is that a good majority of the staff and the people that work there are either women that are either like from another country, they moved here with their families and they're just trying to, make a living. Either that or there may be like they're picking up a part-time job after retirement just to stay busy. And so it kind of almost reminds of like my grandma.
There you go.
And because my grandma, I want to say it was her grandmother who had moved to Ontario from Russia. And so my grandmother is this... she can't use the computer, but the woman sure knows how to make some dang good food.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's kind of like the reason why I feel like to me it's very familiar. And actually that's probably what it was. I never really understood why it was my favorite. I just thought that it was just because the food was good and the staff was nice and the food was cheap. But not cheap, but shoot, by today's market standards, it's cheap.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I think that whatever you do, like SEO or, you're using social media, everything that you're doing, when you do ultimately end up getting to a client, which, like I said, there's nothing wrong. There's not a wrong answer. There's not a wrong approach. It's wrong if it's wrong for you. I mean, that just means that if I'm doing SEO or I'm doing social media, I may be doing 15% effort towards that when I'm actually putting the rest of it on these leads I bought that I put in a particular area that I'm going to have to get face to face with really quick. And I'm putting more effort towards that. But those efforts during the year will change. And I want those tools at my disposal when it's time. So, but one thing I've always recognized is that I believe, man, to be a really good insurance agent, you need to have a good degree in something like sociology. Because learning how people work is a journey that will never end. I am fascinated with how people work. And I love to get to know people and how they're different. And I think that will also help an agent when they put themselves out there like that. Do not sell. Be very transparent. Because when you get these people that will, how do you get paid? I tell them. and you're supporting my small business, and this is how I get paid. I have no problem doing that. I'm providing a service for you, and you'll never lose me as long as you stay with me. And I'm extremely transparent. And I think that a lot of whatever you do on social media, whatever you do with your website, it needs to scream transparency. It does. It needs to scream providing and transparency, because that is the one thing at that generation that they value more than anything. And do not lie to me.
Oh, yeah.
Don't
100%.
hide anything from me. And if you get caught, you're done. Right? You're done. If any guy who's been shunned by his mother, I can guarantee you one of those times is because he lied to his mom.
My parents always used to tell me too, especially my dad, would say that he was like, listen, I ask two things of you. Don't steal and don't lie to me.
And don't lie.
He was like, because here's the thing. At the end of the day, I will find out if you're lying, and I will be 10 times more disappointed if I found out that you lied to me than if you had just told me the truth. Yes, there are going to be times where it's like I'm mad about just what happened, or like, maybe what you said or whatever the case may be. But I will be more mad if you lie to me.
Yes, absolutely.
And then the trust in and of itself is gone.
I always think too that when I put on like on my Facebook or anything I put out there, I like to try to put the message out there that I do not know all the answers, but I am the one who will find them for you.
Yeah.
Like, I will be your partner. And I think that's really important, because a lot of people put out there like they know it all. I'm the professional. I know these things. And yeah, of course, we know a lot more than the average person does, because that's what we do for a living. But there are going to be, and I will be the first one to tell people, I will not know everything, and there'll be a curveball coming my way where I'm going to go, oh, wow, but I'll solve it for you. I will figure it out for you.
And that's
your
how
husband.
you'll end up generate those referrals too.
Absolutely. And you need to put that language kind of, however the wording is, it needs to be on your Facebook. It needs to be on your website. It needs to be, like, my bio was a big deal because it is a big piece of my website. And my bio kind of sends that message. Somehow, some way, you got to figure out how to get that out there, that you are transparent. What is it? The jack of all trades, the master of none, right? But it's still better than the master of one, right? Those kind of things. So it's like, I grew up on that. It's like, jack of all trades. I'm not the master of one, but I'll figure it out. I'll be your partner. And I guess if I do sell anything, I sell that. I do not sell products. I sell answers. I'll find them, and sometimes it may be very difficult, and sometimes the solution is going to be, this is a bad answer, and this is even a worse answer, but at least I got them for you.
Yeah.
And we'll figure it out. Those kind of things. And you're going to find yourself in those situations. Some agents are scared to do that because they're scared to lose a sale, right? So they put it out there like they know everything, and you can't do that. It's not realistic.
There's not a single person, I think, even in the industry. Like, you've got all these, industry moguls. But I mean, like, even they don't know everything about the ins and outs of every single product line, every single carrier, every single deductible. There's not enough time for any one singular person to know everything about the industry.
No way.
But it's a great way for you to be able to, I don't know the answer to that quite yet. However, yes, I will find the answer for you. And that in and of itself establishes more trust and credibility with that client than you just saying, oh, anything. So I'm a freelance makeup artist. So whenever I have clients asking me questions about like certain products, and if I don't know the answer, I'll tell them like, I'm sorry, I just don't know the answer to that. But if you want, like, once we're done with the appointment, I would love to answer that for you. I'll do some Googling or whatever at the time.
Absolutely.
But so since we're on the topic of referrals though, let's go ahead, and I wanted to ask you, what is your referral system? Do you have like a certain referral system that you use with your clients? And how is it that you are able to essentially ask for referrals without really asking? Unless you do actually just ask for referrals.
You know what? It's funny. I was going to say that. So it's timing too, right? It's timing, and it's when do you do it, right? So this past year, I think a lot of the stuff that I had done, the reason I'm not heavy on social media is because I have almost 100% of my business has been based on referrals.
That's
right?
great, yeah.
And it just kind of happened that way. And I'm trying to figure out why, because it was, remember I told you I buy a bulk of leads, and I'll get more referrals out of one of those mailers. And I think it's because of how I cherry picked the area and what I did, that kind of thing. But when I do, it kind of goes back to how you treat people. And again, you have got to be your own FBI agent. When I walk into a house, I look at pictures, I talk to them, and I have conversations that may seem very, very natural, but they're very targeted. Oh, do you have any siblings in the area? Oh, no. Oh, she lives down south. Oh, now I know she's got a sister that I probably won't be able to get to her because she lives in Florida, right? Oh, where's your husband at? Oh, how old is he? Oh, okay, great. Because, when I work with you, I'd like, if health provides, to put you guys in the same thing. I really want to make sure that you both understand what you're on, knowing that, boom, I've already got her husband next year.
Yeah.
And I'm figuring out their family. I'm figuring out their friends. They're what do they do socially? I'm sparking these conversations because they like to talk about themselves, and we all do. That's just understanding humans. And then tying all that into related, the conversations of memories, relatability. Remember that? Do you remember that? That's a strength that I think maybe my generation might have a little bit more than others that are younger, because you said, I kind of remember a little bit about not having internet. Well, I totally remember it. Like I remember in 1996 using the intranet, and which some people probably laughed that I even said that, because I was a junior in high school and whatever. And I learned typing class on a typewriter. And then we had some MS-DOS Apple computers that were hilarious, that only the good kids got to be on those.
Oh, I remember those too.
Yeah,
I remember
yeah.
having those in elementary school, Max for the computer lab, and it was a huge deal. Everybody was freaking out about it. And now we think about it now, about how we've got literally computers in our pockets that we talk on every day. And the way that technology had advanced just in a 20-year span is astounding to me, because it was kind of like that analogy that I'd used earlier about the arrow. All of these different like efforts that people were putting into the industry, and then it just shot and propelled into the distance like you wouldn't believe.
Yep. And I think getting referrals is what I just did to you.
Yeah, exactly.
You see how I just did that?
Yes.
I just sparked up a memory on you.
Yeah,
and you loved the relatability to it.
Yeah.
And you talked about, we had some of those. And imagine if you were 66 years old, and I did that. And it's not like I'm doing it on purpose, because I actually enjoy it.
Yeah.
I enjoy it because
You're having
I'm
like a
that.
genuine conversation
and it's
with
like,
someone.
that's how you do it. I spark up a lot, your eyes light up, and you start talking about something you can remember. And sometimes it's a painful memory, sometimes, whatever. But ultimately, when you're done with that meeting, and you talk, and the business is actually 15% of the meeting, their business. The rest of it, I will tell you, 80% of my meetings are all about me making an approach to get a referral someday out of you. And that has been taught to me that's a culmination of learning over, oh my gosh, young agents. I'm trying not to be like an old man, but because I remember hearing agents like years ago saying this to me, and I'm like, whatever, dude, like whatever, and it's so true. And you got to understand people. And an agent told me when I first became a representative, for an insurance company, and he said 70% of it's your relatability to the client, 30% is the actual work, because you can mess up 50 times over. If they like you, they'll let you mess up.
Oh yeah.
And so when I walk into a house, I actually am a very strong visual person, and when you asked me that question, I remember a house I walked into, and that was exactly where I started to connect the dots of like, wow, now I just got referred to her brother, taking care of her husband like in a month. But again, referrals, and then sometimes I just ask, because now I have a relationship with them.
Yeah.
I never sneakingly like just send a referral card. I don't do that. I will, but not until I establish that relationship.
Yeah.
That really, not just like my insurance relationship. Like I want them
To almost feel like a friend.
absolutely,
Yeah.
because you know what, you got to own your business, and that's okay. That's personal there, right? So some agents won't do that. They won't go there. They don't want to be that personal with people. But this particular business of Medicare actually calls for it. And you need to be the agent to do that, because that's also going to help you as an agent to almost predict what they're going to be doing, the decisions they're going to be making. You got to know them. And so when I get in, there have been times where I'm like, so if you know anybody, please let me know, because you know what? I'm a small business. I'm trying to grow the honest way. And you say those key words to them because they're the ones that the agent knocked on their door in 1978. And they bought $1,000 whole life policy for them. You need to know that history. And people don't door knock anymore. And when they do, they're just, oh my gosh, everybody runs away and scared. But just saying that, it takes them back to that. Wow, this guy's transparent, or this person is transparent. They're being honest with me. He's hid nothing from me, and he wants to really help me. Yeah, I'm going to give this person a shot. And then not only that, they did help me, and I want my sister to know about this person and that she needs to call. Now, the hard part is getting their numbers. Sometimes I don't get numbers, and they won't, even no matter how much, my sister will get upset if I give her number out. Well, make sure your sister calls me tomorrow. I'm going to be in my office all day. Please tell her to call me. I would love to just, break the ice with her and just tell her how I helped you, and she can bounce any ideas or any concerns that she has off me. And then that's how it happens, right? And it's just, it's a leap of faith, because you could be sitting here looking at your phone and not getting a phone call forever.
Yeah.
So I blend that with my actual leads that I have. And then sometimes once you get a book of business to a certain point, you just created a gigantic book to mine. I mean, I don't say that in a bad way. I say it as if now you have a relationship with these clients that are so close that you can tell them, oh my gosh, do you know of anybody? Business is pretty slow. And it's like, wow, don't ever say that to a client. I break the rules, man. Like I've learned that there are so many industry standards that I just don't agree with anymore. And I'm letting them go. And there's still industry standards. Why would you tell a client business is slow? Well, I haven't met anybody turning 65 in a while. Do you know of anybody? That kind of thing. And it is a leap because you now have the relationship with that person, but they won't take it as a sad thing. They want to help you.
Because honestly, so here's the thing. For me, when I have anybody who comes and knocks on my door, especially unannounced, I'm like, okay, who are you? What are you trying to sell to me? And should I even answer the door?
Yeah.
So say even if it was a product or service that genuinely was going to help me.
Yeah.
And then even if I was like, yeah, that sounds really cool, but then they were to be like, oh, so do you know of anybody else who would be like, in need of this stuff? I'd be like, no.
Yeah.
Because first of all, you came to my house unannounced. Number two, like you did more selling than you did educating. You didn't really establish a relationship of trust and rapport with me. And so now you're asking for other people that I can send you to also pester them.
Yeah.
No, absolutely not. So then it's so important to really, again, establish that connection, have that relationship of credibility, trust, transparency, in order for them to be able to trust you enough to be able to send you to somebody else, and they know and they feel comfortable sending you.
So you're selling yourself. You're not selling the insurance. You're selling yourself.
Yeah.
And you just happen to be in the business of insurance. And I think when it comes to referrals, so while you were talking, you sparked something in me again. It's not necessarily like, do I need to get the referral? It's knowing where to look for it.
Yeah.
Okay. Because the referral could be their spouse, right? The referral could be, this is another thing I had picked up on, and an agent never did this. And they're a big agents. They called me, want to talk to me, and I actually think they wanted me to work for them. And I was like, no, sorry, not going to do that. But I appreciate it. We just started talking. And they were like, when you get your leads, what do you do? How do you do it? And I was like, one of the things I always look at is that when you do a mailer, which everybody has their thoughts of what is the best way to get leads, okay? Phone transfer, mail leads, whatever. Mail leads tend to be very good for me because of the lead potential off one lead, right? And the separation, the 3 degrees of separation, a lot, right? I look for that though. Not every agent looks for that. I look for that. And when on a card, when someone puts their information down, about 50% of the time, there's another name and there's another birth date on that card, and it's their spouse. People they don't forget that. They just look at the person at the moment because they want the sale, and they just take care of that person. And then the lead goes away and they don't ever talk to them again unless their CRM has some kind of, constant contact, but they never really think about it. And that is the moment you actually start the conversation. Even if the wife or the husband is 3 years younger, you start that conversation that day. And that's the gift that keeps on giving. Like right now I look at my office and I have, those things where you slot your folders in. Mine is full all the way up to August. And it's because of spouses and referrals that weren't 65, or maybe they're 2 or 3 years younger than when I met the client I was actually meeting. But because I started the conversation with that person 2-3 years before they did that, they're in my book now.
I can't tell you how many times I have had to explain to a good majority of the agents that I've worked with. I'm like, okay, so why are you not targeting you're targeting a T65 or like over 65 audience, but what about the audience members that are still under 65? And they are kind of like deer in the headlights and just like, well, why would I do that? I can't make money. And I'm like, just because you're not going to be making the sale today doesn't mean that you shouldn't have them in your back pocket for 2 to 3 years from now.
Oh, absolutely wonderful that you said that, because you said, we're talking about Medicare healthcare. And one of the clients that I did was he retired and she was on his insurance. Well, I got his Medicare and I wrote her a policy, right? An under 65 insurance policy.
Yeah.
So how many agents will actually do that? They don't even see that. They just see the one person on Medicare. No, wife needs health insurance. Well, now I'm going to carry her health insurance. I have a communication, a contact with her now. So you know what? I'll take care of that. Let's write you ABC Insurance Company. We'll keep your premium down. You have health insurance. You're good to go now for the next 2 years. And then when you're ready for Medicare, I'll just merge you right into Medicare the same as your husband. Boom. Now I got her business now. And then I'm going to have her business when it's time for Medicare.
Exactly.
And I also got a group. I mean, I got a group of 57 people, a company, because of a Medicare lead.
Yeah.
57 people. I am the company benefits agent because of a Medicare lead.
That is so wild.
And you never know. That's the thing, is you never know. And we're not even talking about cross-selling, the opportunities of cross-selling and looking at that. And, you build a relationship so much that I was in let's just say a home that you wouldn't think assets would be there in the middle of the country. I wrote their Medicare, and the gentleman, who was a single gentleman who worked in a factory for 47 years, 72 years old, goes, do you do retirement? Well, of course. I mean, I can help you. What do you do? I do this, this, and this. Okay, well, I have $300,000 and I need someone to help me with it.
Yeah.
So now, because of the relationship with Medicare and how I've educated him, helped him, and will guide him as he goes on, he's like, you're the person I want you to also help me with this, if you can. Some things I have to refer away because I don't do that, but other things, there's annuity business, there's all that stuff. And that's one of those things you never know who you're going to meet that can have 15 other people in their pocket they can refer you to, or they have retirement issues, or you know what, I need final expense because my kids and I never did anything and I don't want to hurt them financially. They need someone honest who is actually going to help them. And I'm sounding like a little bit of a cross-selling cliche, but it's so true.
Yeah,
it's very true. And I can't tell anybody, please don't let regular health insurance business go. If it's not Medicare, because 9 times out of 10, you meet with a husband and wife, there is 2 opportunities there. And that health insurance is just a link to keep in contact with them when they're ready for Medicare.
Yeah.
So I have become very keen to that. And that is the marathon that a lot of people aren't willing to run because they need the results now. I will tell people, you can do it. It's fine. That's not mine. That's just, the next podcast you have with the next agent, he might go, yeah, that guy's great and everything. I don't do that. That's why I have 2,000 clients. Well, I don't want to deal with, 30+% of losing my clients. I want to retain all of them. And because those are continuous relationships that will continue to feed my business.
Especially like slow but steady wins the race, right? And when you think about, there are so many agents that just want like all of this quantity because they're thinking about the short term. They're not thinking about the long term. They're not thinking about what are these renewals going to look like in 2 to 3 years. What are these clients, if I'm only establishing a sale right now, in 2 to 3 years, if their health needs change and they need a new policy, what's the likelihood that they're going to come back to me if I didn't maintain that relationship with them?
Absolutely.
And if they felt, they were like, they were happy with the insurance in and of itself. But if I never even like called to say hello, sent like a birthday card or an anniversary card or something, or even just like called like once or twice a year, and a lot of people will say, I don't have time to do that.
Yeah.
If you don't have time to do that, then you didn't deserve to keep their business.
Right. See, and I think you're so right about that. And I think that when I got into this world of Medicare, I had a 5-year plan. And we're talking about I'm older in Generation X. I'm not that old, but I am young, and I had set a goal, and I will not reach that goal unless I approach the business like this. And I will tell you, a lot of people will turn and burn. And for me personally, it can work for some people, and that's why the importance of in the very beginning of this podcast is you've got to find what works for you.
Yeah.
If you don't, you will burn out. You will personally burn out. You'll underperform because you're tired of it. You're going to lose value in it. You don't like what you're doing. You have to approach the business in a way that's going to meet your style. And that's one of the things that I think that I have maybe found a little bit, and it wasn't until I started looking in the mirror.
And really understanding who you are and really what it is that you like to do, the different types of lead generation strategies or just like marketing strategies that work for you, and the things that make you happy. I mean, if it's, I think I had used earlier before too, that if you hate cold calling and that if you don't like being on the phone, then obviously you're not going to get any joy out of it. And then you are going to be getting burnt out from it. And so like having these personal relationships with your clients feeds you both financially, but also
it feeds your soul so you can keep going the next day. And I have a father-in-law.
Gives you a reason to get up every morning.
I have a father-in-law who was in the business for almost 50 years, and he's now 76 years old. And he started the business the old-fashioned way, the cold calling list. I mean, he goes way back, the 70s, and to the way things are not even close to being done like that anymore. He collected insurance premiums by hand, and he was brought up the old-fashioned way. You get a list and you call them all day long. Call. Knock on doors. Everything's cold. He did that till the day he was done. He was very good at it. And I had gotten really scared when I got into this business because I had done that for a while. And I'm like, I can't do this for the rest of my life. I am not this person. I am not an operating call person. And I have got to figure out how to make this business work for me in a way, you know what I mean? I had to create a system for myself. And I did. And it never ends. The journey continues. But that is when you look at those 5 things, the 5 free ways. Yeah, that's absolutely every single one of them are. But it's how you utilize them is what really matters for yourself. And that is probably the biggest message I tell all agents. Find what works for you, because if you don't, you will not. You won't last. You won't. I've been around long enough to see it.
Yeah.
And no matter how well you do, they go back to the career force, their working force, or they realize that they're not agents. And a long time ago, I realized I was not an agent, right? I wasn't, because I was a former social worker. And that's probably why I feel the way I feel. But I had to figure out, how do I take my personality of what I used to do for a living that I was passionate about and do this and get really good results for my family? right? Because that's a lot of this is my family. And I really had to just sit at night at my desk and think about those things. Do I use SEO? Do I use my website? How do I do it? What message do I put out there? What kind of things am I going to do that's going to help me feed me personally every day and actually get results? Because getting a client list is not going to be it. Cold calling is not going to do it. Putting me in a situation to sell something, it's not going to work.
Right.
And I just had to figure that out. And I would tell any agent, look at your history, look at who you are, how you got into this business, and you need to mesh who you are into this business, and it will work.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Well, John, thank you so much. This has been an amazing discussion that we've been having today about the 5 free ways to generate leads for insurance agents. And I think that you've hit so many amazing points today about like what it takes to generate these free leads. And most of it comes from establishing real connections with people and just being a real person. And I think that's a great way to run and maintain a business.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah. Well, thank you for having me.
Well, thank you. And thank you so much to all of you guys out there listening, or if you are over on our YouTube, you can watch this over on our YouTube channel on Insurance Advisors Direct. But John, again, thank you so much for joining me for the DIP podcast. That is the Direct Insurance podcast. And if you are an insurance agent looking for an industry partner, you want to find an FMO that you really, really want to enjoy working with, we here at Insurance Advisors Direct would love to be considered. You can visit our website at www.iadbrokerage.com, or you can call us toll free, 1-800-381-0977. Thank you so much again, John, and we hope to have you again.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, bye, guys.